Hello, Facebook, and welcome to Travel Talk Live with Gifted Travel Network. My name is Vanessa McGovern, and it's my absolute pleasure and privilege to host our new web show powered by our host agency, Gifted Travel Network. And Travel Talk Live is a really unique way to deliver travel inspiration. And so we have Gifted Travel Network. We have a network of travel experts all over the United States, and they are here to be of service to you, the traveling public. And our goal through Travel Talk Live is to bring you travel inspiration so that you can expand your bucket list and really get inspired for your next travel adventure. And there is no shortage of travel inspiration on today's Travel Talk Live, because today's Travel Talk Live is featuring Shawn Johnson from a very prestigious, really the gold standard in luxury travel, and that is Abercrombie and Kent. So welcome, Shawn, to Travel Talk Live.
Thank you, Vanessa. Good morning.
So we're so excited to have you here, and I hear that you are, today I know that you are a bit of a road warrior in your role as the national accounts, you're the director of national accounts, and you are a road warrior with Abercrombie and Kent. And so today I'm actually catching you in your actual physical office in the Chicago-based office. Is that right?
That's right, in our headquarters.
And it's a wonderful time to be in Chicago right now, isn't it?
It is. It's beautiful. This is the perfect time of year.
And
nice, beautiful leaves outside, and not too hot and not too cold yet.
And specifically the World Series, right? It's fun to be in Chicago right now.
It's exciting today. The Cubs, hopefully, they're actually in Cleveland tonight, but we're hoping that they pull off a win, and then they need one more, and they'll win the World Series for the first time in like 108 years.
That's pretty amazing.
Fingers crossed.
Yes, fingers crossed for you and everybody in Chicago today. So we're really excited that we could catch you and that you could actually take some time out of your schedule to really inspire and to share with us all there is to know about Abercrombie and Kent. And so for those of you watching, our travel partners that are watching, Travel Talk Live is a show designed specifically for the traveling public. So if you are a member of the traveling public, meaning not a travel professional, and you are super excited about what you're going to hear from Shawn when you're ready to book that travel experience with Abercrombie and Kent, or A&K as we say affectionately in the industry, you got to reach out to Gifted Travel Network, and we will pair you with a travel professional that is appropriate for you and for that type of trip experience. And so if you don't have a travel professional and you're watching the show, contact Gifted Travel Network so that we can get you a travel professional. So Shawn, let's just dig in to a very first sort of broad question to sort of start from a 30,000 foot level. You know, as a member of the travel industry and a very engaged member, obviously I know how amazing A&K is. Our travel partners that are watching know how amazing A&K is. But there are probably a lot of people watching this show because a lot of our GTN members have invited their clients and friends and family to watch this show as well. So if there's anybody watching right now that has never heard of Abercrombie and Kent but are literally here on the recommendation of their travel professional, how would you introduce A&K? You know, what's a broad way, good way to sort of introduce somebody to your amazing travel brand?
That's a great way of asking the question, and I think you actually introduced it beautifully by calling us the gold standard.
You definitely are.
Abercrombie and Kent's thank you. Abercrombie and Kent's been in business since 1962. We started as a small family operation in Kenya, where the Kents were offering some safaris. They took their friends out basically on safaris in 1962 when they started their business, and they said that they wanted to be able to take people out into the bush and experience unexpected touches of comfort and luxury all along the way. And on that first trip, it was Jeffrey Kent's idea to bring a Bedford truck that had a refrigerator unit on it, which back in 1962 was revolutionary. And they wanted to have some creature comforts. And his mother, Mrs. Valerie Kent, brought along her sterling silver ice bucket as one of the unexpected touches of luxury so that they could put the champagne in the sterling silver ice bucket.
I
And
love that.
there are conflicting stories of whether it was Colonel Kent wanting to have cold ice for his gin and tonic in the evenings, or whether it was so that they could bring food and produce and meat along so that they didn't have to shoot and kill for their sustenance while they were on safari. They could just point with their cameras. But in those days, that was a real pioneered effort by the Kents. And we've come a long way in 54 years now on 7 continents in more than 100 countries, bringing people unexpected touches of luxury and comfort all along the way. And
that theme has really rung true. I mean, when you said unexpected touches, I mean, all I could think about was that, and that continues through the travel experiences that guests take today. And you use the word, I believe, pioneer. I mean, you've truly pioneered luxury travel since 1962. It's really amazing. And I mean, 52 offices. I know there's over 2,500 people that work for A&K all over the world. I mean, when guests travel on A&K, they are very well taken care of.
We like to call it putting you in the cocoon. So when you arrive, even if you're in a place that might not be comfortable on your own, we want to make the guests feel comfortable from the moment they get off the plane. When they come out into the arrivals hall, there's someone waiting for them. We have a different person who's picking them up in a car to take them to their first hotel. So you really don't have to think once you've fallen into the arms of Abercrombie.
I love that. I love that. I don't want to think. That's amazing. So let's see, what else can you share with us about A&K that really makes A&K stand out as a luxury tour operator?
So you brought up our 52 offices around the world, and I think it's important to talk about why that's significant. Having our own operations on the ground in a number of places where we work is really what enables us to offer a consistent luxury Abercrombie & Kent experience around the world, because we actually hire the people, train the people to our standards, and sort of, no matter where you are, when you're greeted by the person with the yellow tie, the blue shirt, and the navy blue jacket, you always know that once you've arrived, you've sort of come home. So if you're a regular travel with Abercrombie & Kent, you'll always have the same, or generally, I won't say always, generally speaking, when you come back, if you arrive in Cairo, you go and tour Egypt, you come back to Cairo, the same person who met you on day one will meet you when you fly back into Cairo at the end of your trip, and they'll help you check in for your return flight home. So again, we're very much about people feeling comfortable, and not only comfortable in a luxurious surrounding way, but comfortable with the people with whom they travel. And the other thing that I think is important to mention is that our tour directors, we call them resident tour directors, live in the regions where they guide. We think that that's significant because if somebody who's Egyptian is showing you around Egypt, it's a little bit more authentic than somebody who's coming from the U.S. or Canada and coming to Egypt even if they're coming for a season, it's just not the same thing as a local.
Right. That's really important, especially to really immerse your guests in the entire experience of the country.
Absolutely.
So just real quick, let me go to the fan page to make sure. For those of you watching, thank you and welcome, and thanks for joining Travel Talk Live this week. We are talking with Shawn Johnson of Abercrombie & Kent, or A&K as we call in the travel industry. And also to many of your raving fans, you are affectionately shortened to A&K. We want to welcome you to Travel Talk Live. If you're just catching us now, I just want to check the fan page real quick. If you have any questions, we're actually going to get into a specific topic now for one of the destinations that A&K truly excels at. Plus, we want to highlight some other amazing destinations. But if there's a specific question or a destination that you absolutely want to hear about and you want to hear it directly from Shawn, go ahead and type it in the comments so that we can get to it and absolutely feature this during Travel Talk Live. We'd love for your engagement and for your questions. So please feel free to make a comment. And if you know Shawn, perhaps you've met him at a travel industry event, or perhaps you're one of our GTN members and you met Shawn at the GTN conference back in September, go ahead and leave a note for Shawn as well and say hello to him. I'm just double checking the feed here, Shawn, to make sure we are all good. We have some listeners. We have listeners. See, I love live. We can actually see how many people are watching, which is awesome. Okay. So if you have any questions for Shawn and A&K, or you want him to highlight a specific destination, Go ahead and put that in the comments so that he can talk to that. We want to absolutely make sure that we're catering Travel Talk Live to what you want to hear about. So before we do go to that, let's talk about the destination that I absolutely want you to share inspiration on for our viewers, and that is really probably what you would say your signature, maybe is a great way to describe it. Hopefully, I'm sure you have another way to describe it. Destination. Obviously, it's in the heart. It's a heart and soul for you because it's where your story started for A&K, and that's Africa. So tell us a little bit about traveling to Africa through an A&K experience.
Perfect. I think the word that you're looking for us is it's our home.
Your home, so right? That's beautiful.
It's definitely one of our strongest areas in the world because of it, because it's our home. So there are different ways to go on safari in Africa, and I think one of the first questions that I ask a potential prospective guest who might be thinking about planning a safari to Africa is, what are they envisioning for the trip? Are they expecting to sleep in a tent with canvas walls, which we can absolutely make happen? And these aren't the kind of tents that you have in your backyard. These are tents with full service. You have a tent butler, proper bedding, Egyptian cotton sheets.
Butler.
A tent butler.
Wow.
And everything.
What does it? Sorry, I'm like anchoring in on that one. But what does a tent butler do exactly?
So the tent butler looks after pretty much everything from filling your shower with warm water in the morning to making your bed, turning your bed down in the evening, putting a hot water bottle in it if it's a cold night to make sure that when you get into bed you have a warm bed to start with. Tent butler will bring you hot tea, hot coffee, or hot chocolate for breakfast in the morning, just like literally your wake-up call. The best wake-up calls in the world, by the way, are in Africa, because, and this sounds a little freaky in our current world that we live in, but you're sleeping in a tent. So in the morning, one of the things that we do on safari is go early in the morning because that's when the animals are most active, when the sun is first coming up. So we have to get up before the sunrise. And the butlers will come to your tent with a tray in hand, and they'll say, good morning, and they'll start unzipping your tent, which at the beginning kind of seems a little freaky that somebody's coming in your tent, but you're sleeping in a bed that's covered by a mosquito net, and in a very theatrical aspect, they turn the lights on outside of your bed, which means they can really only see your shadow. They can see that there's a being in there, but they can't really see you clearly through the mosquito net when the lights are adjusted that way.
Okay.
And they literally put a tray with your drink of choice and a couple of biscuits or cookies in the morning. That's literally placed bedside, so you can have your first cup of coffee, tea, or hot chocolate before you ever get out of bed. That at the same time, we have some guests who like to have the butler turn their shower on for them so that the hot water is already running when they actually get out. So that's kind of the experience of having a tent butler. They also will do your laundry for you, iron your underwear even. They do that. They do it to dry. It's not a thing that you, when I have pressed underwear, they just do it to help it dry a little faster.
Okay. Yeah, who wants to do laundry when you're on an African safari? No, thank you.
So the tents are one way that you can do it, and there are mobile tents, which are going to be the most rustic. They'll have battery and solar powered lighting, but everything that I just mentioned was in a mobile tent, which we can pick up and move right to wherever the migration might be in Kenya or Tanzania.
Okay.
We also have permanent tents, which are a little bit bumped up on the amenities because they have hardwired electricity.
Right.
They've got plumbing that literally comes out of the ground. Even in the mobile tents, we have flush Western-style toilets that just seem like you're in a hotel room. But in the mobile tents, for sure. And then we have lodges at varying levels of luxury that we partner with. So the lodges are going to be the most Western-style buildings. They usually have air conditioning, a little bit more in the way of you just keep bumping up another notch in terms of the luxury that's available. So one of my personal favorites is a place called Sasakwa Lodge in Tanzania. That's sort of like you're in an English manor house that happens to be plunked right down in the Serengeti, and it's just one of the most amazing properties in the world. And then that's East Africa with the migration. The other thing that some people say is, I really want to go to the spa. I want fine dining. I want to drink some great wine. And yeah, I'd like to see some animals. And in that case, rather than East Africa with the tents and the lodges, I would send them to Southern Africa, because South Africa, of course, is one of the world's great makers of wine.
I was just going to say, South Africa is famous for winemaking.
Absolutely, and the wine country there is lovely. It's really just a beautiful place, and you have the opportunity to spend some time in Cape Town, which has great restaurants. And right now, if you go to Cape Town, the exchange rate is pretty significantly in our favor, which isn't so great for South Africa, but it's great for us. I was just there last December, and you could have dinner at Nobu. They have an outlet of New York's Nobu in the one and only resort, and you can have dinner there for $50, which is amazing.
Wow.
That's with wine. But some really comfortable places like Singita, or there are some other South African brands that just have beautiful over-the-top lodges that really ensconce you in luxury and comfort, and they have great game viewing. And those are private reserves that are on the edges of the national parks, which means there aren't very many rules in terms of your engagement with the animals, meaning that you can drive right up to a leopard, whereas if you're in the national parks in Kenya, Tanzania, or even South Africa, if you're in the park, you have to stay on the road. And so being able to go off-road for your photographer clients is really a significant significant improvement, because you rely less on luck. You can literally drive right up, within a safe distance where the animal's not uncomfortable, but these animals are used to seeing the vehicles, and they're comfortable with a big metal machine, as long as they don't see the people inside.
Right. Wow. So that's more in the South Africa area.
More the over-the-top luxury is more in Southern Africa. I will say Tanzania is catching up, and Kenya a little behind Tanzania, but for the authentic African bush experience, East Africa for sure. For people who are a little more on the fence of where they'd like to go, or how rustic they want to take it, South Africa is a very safe bet, and Botswana as well, which is the country just north of South Africa, which has some amazing game viewing.
And what type of a allotment of time should somebody assign for an A&K trip to Africa?
I'd say a minimum of 10 days. It's going to take you a day and a half really to get there, and a day and a half to get back. You need, and particularly for Southern Africa, I think you need a minimum of 10 days, and probably more comfortably, I'd say 2 weeks. You're going on a really long flight to get there. If you go nonstop from the U.S., it's about 15 hours. And most people don't fly nonstop. They will go through Europe or the Middle East and fly down. And it's a brutal flight. Even if you're in front of the curtain, it's a long flight.
Talk to me and talk to our viewers about family travel with the Africa product. How big is that? Like, do you see a lot of the traveling public that are taking the A&K journeys to Africa that are bringing children? And if so, what ages do they usually do that? And talk to me about that family product in Africa.
Sure. We do offer family programs. We also have a number of families they're big enough to sort of make their own group. So a lot of multi-generational types of families.
What an amazing way for a family to see. Oh my gosh, that's, of course, they do a small group journey to Africa, the grandparents, the parents, the kids. I'm like, what an amazing trip for a family to do.
And it's one of the more amazing classrooms in the world.
Yes.
You really get to learn about the way. Really, you learn about the circle of life for sure, but you get to see animals that look. I happened to go to a zoo recently, and I was kind of
like, how do you go to a zoo?
I just happened to go to one here in Chicago, and it was an uncomfortable moment, because I'm looking at these animals that didn't look that happy or healthy.
No.
And I know they're well fed, but it's not the same as seeing them in the wilderness. So the family programs that we offer, the ages vary by camp or by lodge. So the rules that they have, which are primarily driven by insurance, So generally speaking, 7 or 8 is the absolute minimum that are allowed to go on most of the camps.
Okay.
There is a malaria-free zone in South Africa that allows a little bit younger children, but honestly, I think 7 or 8 is about as young as I think you could take a child that they would really have a memory or an appreciation of what they're experiencing.
Yeah.
The reason that there's an age difference is because many of the camps and lodges do not have fences around them, which means while you're sleeping at night, animals could be walking through the camp. And we need the children to be old enough that when the guides say you can't go out of your tent at night,
you can't go out of your tent.
Because there might be a lion walking through. You have to have them old enough to understand that when they say you really can't go out at night without one of the guides, we mean it. But 7, 8 is typical. There are some places that are 10, 12, and the one that's the most extreme is to go gorilla trekking in Uganda Uganda or Rwanda, and you have to be at least 16 to go gorilla trekking.
Well, I can appreciate why he would set the age at that level. Oh my goodness, imagine a 16-year-old, 17-year-old coming back from maybe their summer break, and what did you do? Oh, I went gorilla trekking in Uganda. I mean, that's amazing. Wow, I can't wait to do an Africa journey with A&K with my children when they're old enough. I definitely have a couple more years on that one. So let me check. I'm just gonna go quickly to the fan page, unless ladies, if you my stage crew behind the iPad here, if we have any questions or comments for Shawn, I'm just gonna quickly check it. Let's see. Hold on a second. All right. So we do have some coming through here. Let's see. All right. So Waldo Miller. Hey, Waldo. He is a member of Gifted Travel Network, and he would like for you to talk about what standard does A&K use to select their luxury barges in France. So actually, this is a good opportunity before you answer, Shawn. So actually, because this is a question outside of what we were just talking about with Africa, so perhaps now is a good time to now go to the world and expand upon other parts of the world that A&K obviously excels at. So before we do that, is there any other mention that you want to talk about in regards to A&K to Africa before we wrap that part up and go to the other questions regarding other parts of the world?
I think we've pretty much covered Africa. I guess the last thing I just would like to say in terms of the animals that you'll see, because I think that would be the follow-up question after I sort of ask what a vision for the trip is.
Right.
You're likely to see sort of the big five. You're going to see lions more than likely. You're going to see lots of what I call appetizers, but lots of animals in the antelope class. You're likely to see cheetah. You're likely to see probably warthogs in some parts, maybe wild dog if you're lucky. But down in Botswana particularly, and you can see the migration, I should say, which are wildebeest and zebra by the hundreds of thousands. You can see those in Kenya and Tanzania. So that's something a lot of people want to see the migration. Kenya, Tanzania are the only place that you can see the migration. Down in southern Africa, particularly Botswana, there's a park, an area, a reserve called the Marimi Game Reserve. We have a property there that's a subsidiary company of Abercrombie Kent that has a place called Chiefs Camp, just renovated, an amazing property, but the most remarkable game viewing for predators in the world. Per acre, there are more cheetahs, lions, and leopards than any place else in the world, and it's really remarkable when you see 3 or 4 leopards in a day. You'd be very lucky to see one leopard on a safari anyplace else, and there you can see more than one in a day, and that's very common.
Remind everybody again, name that specific place again.
Oh, it's the Marimi Game Reserve, Moremi Game Reserve. It's in Botswana, and our property is called Chiefs Camp because it's on Chiefs Island, which is a very small section of this part of a national reserve.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. So let's see. Actually, so Waldo, I went too quickly to that, so I'm going to get to you, Waldo. I promise we're going to answer that question. John Reese, hi John. John had a question specifically about Africa, so I do want to ask it while we're talking about it. John is asking for the best resource to discover the best times to go to each African country. he is a member of Gifted Travel Network, so he's obviously wanting to aggregate this information to be a better service to his clients. Is there a direct resource or does he just work directly with you on that?
So we have on our website and in our brochure for our luxury small group journeys, you'll find a map that shows the migration pattern. So again, the animals don't have calendars, but they follow the rains, which make the grass grow. So they're essentially going in a circle, and we have a map that sort of shows in what months the animals will be most likely to be in that region. And so that's available on our website or in our luxury small group journey brochure. Also another resource for the travel advisor partners that are on with us, and we have a section of our website called Agent Services. Once you have a login for Agent Services, you can go to a section called Instant Experts, and the Instant Experts are published by our offices on the ground, and they actually, the Southern Africa and the East Africa office have both published an Instant Expert, and they will show you sort of the weather, the temperature times. I don't think there's a bad time to go to South Africa. That's my personal opinion. Even in the middle of their winter, it's still a pretty lovely place. Wow. Botswana, the best time for game viewing is in July and August, which is the middle of their winter. But the reason it's the best time is because the animals are active for more parts of the day because it's cooler. When it's 95 or 100 degrees outside, the animals are hiding under a tree. They don't want to be out in the heat any more than we do. So that's why they go out first thing in the morning or last thing at the day's end. For those places, I think it's a little bit better to go in the winter just because it's more comfortable, but their winter isn't a Chicago winter.
Awesome. Well, that was a lot of resources for John, so hopefully that helps you, John. Another question that we have from Jeanette Perry. Hi, Jeanette. Also in regards to Africa, she's wondering, during the South Africa trips, do you also go to Johannesburg and Soweto? Hopefully I'm saying that correctly, or mainly Cape Town?
It's Soweto.
Soweto.
It depends on first of all, it depends on the trip. For most of our group programs, we do begin in either Cape Town or Johannesburg, and it depends on the trip and sort of what's being included. Johannesburg is a bigger air hub, so oftentimes we will start a trip in Johannesburg. We're not going to downtown Johannesburg. We're generally spending a night in a town just a little bit north of the city. And then we'll fly out the next day to Botswana or to Kruger National Park if we're not spending time in the Johannesburg area. You can go to Soweto. It's a day trip from Johannesburg, or from the Johannesburg area. But most of our guests, we find, prefer Cape Town in terms of spending time, unless they're interested in going to Soweto to sort of see there's an apartheid history museum there that's worth seeing. But generally speaking, we find guests, typically a first-time visitor anyway, is going to Cape Town and spending usually three nights in Cape Town, maybe four, because from Cape Town you can take day trips out to the wine country. You can see Cape Point, which is where the Indian Ocean and Atlantic Ocean symbolically meet. It's a beautiful place. And of course you've got Robben Island, where Nelson Mandela was imprisoned, Table Mountain, and
much to do
a very
there.
cosmopolitan city, Cape Town.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you for that detailed answer. So I guess now is a good time to depart from home, from A&K's home, Africa. And if you do have any other further questions about Africa, please feel free to put it in the thread. I do want to get to Waldo's question now. So we're going to move north, very far north, up to France. And so the question was, what standard does A&K use to select their luxury barges in France? Or more broadly, let's talk about the luxury barge experience in France.
Sure. So we have about 22 barges that we work with currently.
And actually,
as I mentioned earlier,
one little question to qualify for those people that don't even know what a barge is. Could you just take a moment to explain what a barge? Because it sounds kind of harsh, but it's not.
Yeah, it does.
Right. So what is a barge cruise?
The name's a little deceiving. So
it is.
you have your traditional river cruise ships, which Viking, Uniworld, name one of a dozen companies that are operating ships that hold 150 to 200 people on board. that you see stacked up in the major cities on rivers in Europe. That's a river cruise. A barge is going to be a smaller vessel that will hold, the ones we work with anyway, hold between 6 and 22 passengers. Most of them are in the 6 to 12 guest range. They are privately held, generally speaking. Oftentimes, there are companies like Beaumont that own a number of them, French Country Waterways. And the thing that we do is we've not chosen just one company. We've also chosen not to own the hardware because it allows us the freedom to sort of pick and choose the best barges that are available in that region. The barges move very slowly compared to a river ship. You literally could, I like to say, you could literally walk along the shore and go as fast, if not faster, than the barges move. So it's not a speedboat trip along the river, but you are going on to some lesser traveled tributaries, and you don't have the congestion that you find with the bigger river ships. So it's a nice way to sort of meander through Europe. It's perfect for a group of couples. The food is always a priority, so there's a la minute, cook-to-order food for the guests that are on board. The rooms are comfortable. They're not huge, but they're comfortable. Some of the barges are really almost over the top in their decor, and others are a little bit more simple, but they're always comfortable, and always the ones we're working with are, I'd give them a solid 4-star rating, and some of them are creeping up into 5-star, no problem.
I mean, that sounds really amazing. And back to the whole comment about multi-generational travel in Africa, like the one with 22, I mean, what a great opportunity for you and your family doing a multi-gen. I loved what you just said. It's like you're meandering down the rivers of Europe, just kind of meandering your way through some river in France or Germany or wherever the barges go, and just what a fantastic way to explore the countryside and with your family. I'm sure you have your own chef, on board if there's such few people. And do the barges have, for A&K, are they set itineraries, or is there some flexibility based on when you're there? Like if you really love a city, could you stay longer?
So they are set itineraries. If you're booking an individual passage, it's definitely a set itinerary. In other words, if you're buying a cabin, it's a set itinerary. If you're chartering the ship, so if you have a group of 22 friends or a big family that's chartering one of the larger boats or one of the smaller ones, you have a little bit of flexibility. But the reality is you have to get from you could conceivably stay in a city a little bit longer, but you'd be giving up the next city likely, or you'd have to give something up along the way down the road. They can't just speed it. It's not a ship that they can just speed it up and make up the time. No, that's fair. Let's go to the next question here from Janine. Janine's curious about the Marco Polo journeys. Could you talk about that? Oh, sure. That's great. Janine's in the advanced class. The Marco Polo journeys, they're what I like to call limited edition trips. So they were originally what we used to test new destinations out. So when we were one of the first tour operators to go into China in the early 1980s for Americans or for Westerners, we put that in as a Marco Polo journey. So it was kind of going to a place that was not quite ready for the luxury treatment yet. In fact, I think on the first trip, the stories I've heard is we actually slept in a military barrack for a couple of the nights because that was the only thing that was available that was there. Now, they've come a long way. So they're still limited edition journeys, but you no longer have to be a member of a travel club that we have called the Marco Polo Club. It's now become a loyalty program. But these journeys are typically for repeat guests, meaning that they've traveled with us before. Not 100%, but it's a very high percentage are Abercrombie and Kent regular travelers. But we're going to places like Mongolia. We're going 2 departures a year to the Nadam Festival. We might include something along a river or that includes river or rail. We do a South Africa by river and rail, which started as a Marco Polo journey, but was so popular we did move it into our regular luxury small group journeys. This year we've added, or for 2017, we've added palaces and estates where we're taking you into private homes that are literally mostly in the British countryside that
Okay.
are literally palaces and estates, privately held, not open to the public, but that we've got them opened for a special trip with us this year.
That you stay
Um,
there,
we have,
not just visit?
you can stay in some of them. In some
Okay.
cases, we're just visiting. It kind of depends, but
Okay.
it's more about having an opportunity to visit them
Okay.
than to stay in the palaces.
Okay.
But it is possible. We actually have, in our villas, we actually have a Scottish castle that we rent out as a villa that we use.
That's pretty amazing.
But that's Marco Polo. They're limited edition, happen once or twice, and sometimes we'll only do it once. It's not an annual thing. It may just be a one time. We did a chairman's trip with Jeffrey Kent last year to India, and we had 4 trips that came together, and he hosted a gala event in Hyderabad that lasted for 3 days.
Wow.
And it was a fantastic dinner around the world's largest dining table that seats 102.
Oh my gosh. That sounds pretty amazing. That sounds amazing.
So that's Marco Polo.
That's Marco Polo. All right. Well, thank you for your question, Janine. That was perfect. Let's see. Christy Boyce. Hi, Christy. Christy is asking, and actually, Christy used to work for A&K. Just a little side note, back in Chicago a little while ago. You'll be hearing from Christy, I know. Christy wants to hear more about cultural activities that guests can participate in, or more information about the A&K Foundation as well.
Oh, perfect. So can you repeat the first part of the question?
I guess she just wants to hear more about cultural activities that guests.
Cultural activities. Okay.
Are given opportunities to engage in.
That's a tough one. Well, it depends on where we are in the world. I'm going to pop back into Marco Polo for a second because I think it's one of the most unique cultural experiences that I've gotten to do. We actually have a trip to Easter Island that goes during what's called the Tapati, T-A-P-A-T-I festival. And I happened to be there. I wasn't planning to be there for that actual event, but it was an interesting island tradition, and they have the whole island basically is wearing very few clothes, and they're painted in different colors of mud in these beautiful designs. And there are 3 princesses that have, it's kind of like the Rose Parade, although it's a little bit more rustic looking than that. But guests can actually go and experience the Tapati Festival, and they don't have to paint themselves, but they can go and watch it.
Okay.
We offer lots of insider access, going into tombs that aren't necessarily open to the public. In Egypt, we can take you into parts of the Forbidden City in Beijing to experience sort of the way an emperor would have lived, 400 or 500 years ago, into a private quarters that isn't open to the public. Okay. So there's lots of we allow our guests an opportunity to immerse themselves into the culture, but to come home to a 4 or 5 star hotel at night. Generally speaking, a 5-star hotel at night.
Okay.
So they're, like I said, they're in the cocoon.
Yes.
They get a little bit of reality, and then we bring them back to shielded reality, I'm going to call it. As far as the A&K Foundation, we actually call it A&K Philanthropy, which is it's been a very important part of Abercrombie and Kent's DNA for more than 25 years.
Okay.
We like to say long before it was required or common. We've always felt that it was important to give back to the communities where we're taking guests, and so our philanthropic efforts are local in terms of the places that we travel. They are, we've actually bumped it up, I'm going to say, a little bit in the last couple of years. Our most recent project that I'm really proud of, and I have to admit, I've got to admit I was a skeptic when the announcement came out. We were asked to donate used bikes if we had an old bike sitting around the garage, and tell our friends. And we had a shipping container. We had one here and one at our office in the UK. And, the back of a semi-truck, that size of a trailer. Okay. And the first weekend that we accepted the bikes, we had about a trailer and a half's worth of bikes that were brought to us. So we started a second shipping container. So we ended up sending 3 full shipping containers of used bikes, and we opened a bike shop in this little village in Zambia.
Wow.
It now employs 5 women full time. Every child in the town has a bike.
Wow.
And they're repairing and selling bikes to other villages and communities in as far away as Botswana and Zimbabwe. So it's become a sustainable, viable business that we were able to start. And we've now done a second shipment to Botswana and started a little bike shop there. And again, we're employing people, and it's a sustainable project that really helps the community make itself better. And so and allow and help improve the lives and livelihoods of the people who are there.
That's beautiful. That's amazing, actually. So,
and guests can go visit that village. So we're trying to make these things available to our guests if they're interested. We don't push it upon anybody, but we try to take them if they have an interest.
And I'm sure there's tons of information about the A&K's philanthropic efforts. I assume on the website. Perhaps if anybody wants to learn more.
It's on our website, and they have their own website, which is akphilanthropy.org.
Awesome.
But there's a link to it. It's a link to it. There is a link to it from our website as well, of course.
And I can hear Caroline on the other side of this computer typing, so we'll get her to put a link also for everybody here in the thread, so you can go take a look at akphilanthropy.org. All right, let's talk about, actually, Christy has another question, which I know you are going to love to talk about this. She wants you to talk about the private jet trips.
Oh, perfect.
Yes, which I would like to do also.
I know.
Amazing.
You're right on me on the waiting list of fam trips. You're right on right after me. So we charter a 757. It's an extended range aircraft. It's a medium range aircraft, but it's a good size plane because it allows us to land on fairly short runways for the size of planes. For the size of plane that it is, we have 50 first class seats. They're lie flat, Italian leather, the same kind of leather that is put in a Bentley car we've used to make these seats. Beautiful burlwood tables that come out. So it's a very upscale feeling on the plane, and the environment of the guests is very social. Nobody's sleeping on this plane. We have no overnight flights. It's nice that we have the lie flat seats, but we're really more about the plane is a social time for our guests who are traveling. They're like-minded guests, and we have really tried to create journeys that introduce some fascinating culture and history to the guests who travel on these journeys. And so we offer, generally speaking, 1 or 2 around the world journeys every year. And then we'll also perhaps have a regional journey. So next year we have a trip around Africa that I think has 1 room left if anybody's interested. And the jet trips, we try to spend 3 nights. Sometimes it's 2, but generally speaking 3 nights, because it's tiring to cross time zones and sort of hit the ground running. And so we've tried to really give people enough time that they can get a really good taste of a place, see the highlights in a way that they wouldn't likely be able to see on their own. And the team that works with the jets have really tried to work out every logistical detail so that when the guests get off, they don't have to go wait in line with 49 other people to do their customs and immigration stuff. We bring the customs officer to them, or we've broken it up so that some of it's pre-done and they just have to sort of pass through a line. So we've really tried to make it easy. Tried to take away that type of pain. We also handle all of their luggage. There's my favorite job title in the whole of A&K is luggage master. We have a person that manages where everybody's luggage is at any one time to make sure that it's always on the plane, because at this price point and at this level you can't afford to have a lost bag.
No.
We have 3 tour managers, at least a tour director that sort of manage everybody. So when we land with a jet with 50 people on it, we have 3 motor coaches, full-size coaches that are taking these guests, 17, 18 at a time. It's not, you're never getting on a bus with 50 people ever with us. Some of the dinners seem like what I would refer to as state dinners. I mean, they're really big gala affairs, usually in a really unique, fascinating place. And like I said, the the jet makes its way around the world in
and how
about
many
26
days. Oh yeah, I was going to ask you. 26 days. Okay.
Around
Wow.
the world trips are 26 days, 9 countries. We have one departing in May called the Tropics to the Arctic, which is out of Fort Lauderdale back to New York. Leaves on May the 1st next year. We're waiving the single supplement on that one, so it's a great value if you have any solo travelers that might be looking for this type of experience.
Okay.
It's starting in Fort Lauderdale, goes to Colombia, then on to Easter Island, then down to French Polynesia and the Solomon Islands, the Philippines, a chance to go whale shark diving if somebody has an interest in doing that. And then we make our way north up into the Gobi Desert in Mongolia, then into the old Silk Road, the beginning of that in Uzbekistan, then into St. Petersburg, where we visit the Fabergé Museum privately. It's closed to the public on the morning that we're there, and we're led by one of its curators through its collection of those bejeweled eggs that they're so famous for.
Yes.
We then head to Iceland for our final stop. We'll spend some time both in Reykjavik as well as heading up into the wilderness a little bit for guests to experience the topography and the beautiful landscape there, and then fly home to New York. So 26 days, price point's $129,000.
That's an amazing value for that. I mean, that's an amazing price point.
If you compare to first class fare, you'd find that it would cost more than double the cost of this trip, and we're including the hotels, the sightseeing, almost all the meals, all the drinks. If you compare just the airfare, you would exceed the $129,000
Yes,
price point.
Absolutely. And so you said that this specific departure that starts in Fort Lauderdale and ends in New York that's in May. How much availability is there still for that for 2017?
That one still has some space on it. That's why we have a promotion right now that is offering to waive the single supplement. That's unprecedented for us. It's about a $16,000 savings, so it's a good value, and we found that interestingly that when we introduced this, it actually picked up a good number of seats. So we still have space available.
There's a lot of people that for life circumstances they can travel on their own, and they're looking to travel on their own. So waiving that single supplement is huge.
Absolutely. And we also find that sometimes people are married, but their spouse doesn't want to go to some of the places that are on the trip, and they go anyway.
So bye-bye. I'm going on a private jet trip for 26 days. I'll see you in a month. How does the spouse not want to go?
And I won't go through the whole itinerary, but we have a second around the world itinerary that I do want to mention because I'm really excited about it. It's a collaboration with the New York Times. We just introduced it a couple of weeks ago. So it's the same aircraft, round trip out of New York, but it starts in the New York Times office, actually going into the newsroom with the publisher and chairman.
Wow.
And then we have 4 different journalists who will be traveling with the group, including a 2-time Pulitzer Prize winner, they'll spend a few stops with the guests talking about the destination that they're going, and all these destinations were chosen from countries that are in the headlines over the last year or so. So it's really a fascinating trip for people who are, really interested in the world and politics and cultures and sort of what's really happening outside of our country and in the greater world. It's really a fascinating opportunity.
What's the departure date for this?
That's departing in February of 2018.
Okay.
So a little bit more time on that one. We sold about a quarter of the plane on day one. We had an ad in the New York Times on Sunday 2 weeks ago, and we had, I want to say, 13 bookings the next day.
I saw that. I think I saw you posted a picture of that ad, and then I posted it actually to our members to be like, people are taking this trip. This is amazing.
It was exciting. I mean,
that is exciting.
To see a 2 full-page ad in the New York Times is pretty big. So
that is.
we were excited.
Very big. So, I mean, February 2018 is really not that far away. I mean, it's a year. It's practically a year from now. So now is definitely the time. What's the price point on that trip?
That one's $135,000.
Okay,
but
again,
I feel that there's a lot of value packed into that with the journalists on board.
Amazing. We're probably over. How are we doing for time, ladies?
Almost 50 minutes.
Oh, wow. Geez, time flies when you're talking about luxury. Jeez. I could literally listen to you talk for a couple hours. I could just sit here and do this with you for so many hours, Shawn. Everything you're saying is just so fascinating and intriguing, and it's just amazing. So, and I want to thank all of our listeners for all the engagement and the questions that you've got. If you've really enjoyed hearing from Shawn and learning about A&K today, please leave a comment in the thread. I am going to get to this one question that we didn't get to from Nicole, but if you're watching and you're just as enthralled at these experiences as I am, we'd love to hear from you, whether you're a member of the traveling public or whether you are a member of Gifted Travel Network here to educate yourself for your own clients. Please go ahead and leave a comment for Shawn and a comment for A&K about what you've learned on today's Travel Talk Live. Nicole, I'll just take this last question here, make sure that I've covered everything, is asking, I would love to hear a little bit more about your favorite connections tours with the immersive experiences.
Oh, that's a great one. Thank you. So Connections is a newer, I'm going to call it a newer product for us, and we've really reimagined it. I think really we've kind of perfected it, if you will. It's the idea behind Connections is to sort of pull back the veil, capitalize on our network of people on the ground who can really offer guests an immersive experience in a destination. So we might go to a local market where the locals shop for their food, where they actually are actually going to shop, not just the tourist market where you can buy trinkets and T-shirts and things like that. We'll have some interactive opportunities with the locals. So we might go meet one of the boats coming into Dubrovnik, where the oysters were just pulled out of the water, within an hour or two before, and you can actually taste a fresh oyster on the half shell, literally as it's coming off the boat.
Wow.
We might spend some time in Vienna with a member of the Vienna Philharmonic, who will play a little bit for us and talk about what it's like to work for a world-class orchestra, what the schedule is like for rehearsals and travel and performances.
Wow.
And then we're staying in boutique hotels. So really fun, cool properties, under 100 rooms, many of them only 30 to 40 rooms. They don't generally accept groups, but we've made some very special negotiations. So again, what we found from our guests is they want to come home to a really comfortable, great service type of property. They don't have to have 5 stars with the chandeliers and enormous flower arrangements, but they want a nice place. And so we've really gone an extra 10 miles to get some really fun, well-located, great boutique hotels to be included in these groups. There are only 24 guests on these groups. They're guaranteed to operate from the first 2. And we've got some really interesting pairings of cities and regions, mostly in Europe, but around the world for our Connections journeys as well. And newest one is to Iran. We've just added Iran. As well as we have Cuba, but primarily in Europe is where most of them are.
Well, what a great way to describe that tour. As you were describing it, I'm like, well, Connections is such a perfect way to describe it, because you've literally gone out there and leveraged, I'm sure, your already existing connections, but you're really trying to create that connection for the traveler to the actual destination. I mean, talking to somebody who works in Vienna, in that space, and listening to their schedule and learning about that. I mean, that's truly creating that connection. I'm like, what an amazing way to experience the destination. So that sounds amazing.
Absolutely.
Amazing. All right, so let's see. Waldo snuck in a last question here. He just and it's a really quick one. He wants to know if the New York trip, I believe he's...
I posted the link.
Oh, you did? Okay, never mind. My team's on it. She posted the link. It's all good. All right, so then that question was taken care of. So if you have any questions or comments, really some comments for Shawn, please go ahead and leave comments for him. Thank him for sharing information about A&K. Or I'd love to hear Shawn and I, because Shawn will go back and he'll be able to look at this thread as well. We'd love to hear what stood out for you during this presentation. If there was a specific mention that Shawn said maybe about the specific national parks or the winery area in South Africa, or some part about the African safari experience, or maybe the mention about the private jet tour, Easter Island, just something. What was it about Shawn's feature here on Travel Talk Live that really resonated for you, that you just cannot wait either to take that trip yourself or to spread the good word to your own network of clients and prospects and family and friends if you're a travel professional about A&K and what they offer. So go ahead and leave a comment for us here in the thread so that we know what inspired you today on Travel Talk Live, because that is really the goal of Travel Talk Live, is to inspire you to dream bigger for your vacation experiences. And what better travel partner than Abercrombie & Kent than to dream big with, because you presented some pretty big travel experiences for today's Travel Talk Live, Shawn. So, and on that note, what wrap-up comments and parting words do you have for our listeners that are now just hearing about A&K for the first time? They've just listened to you for an hour, and you've shared so much amazing information about A&K and the various product offerings that you do make available for the traveling public. What parting thoughts do you have for our listeners, or maybe not parting thoughts so much as how should they take it further in terms of deepening their engagement with A&K? Maybe that's a better way to put it.
Well, first step is always, I think, to talk to your travel advisor. If you're a customer, talk to your travel advisor for sure, because they're going to be a wealth of knowledge as well. We have a great website, obviously. We have, as you found earlier today, you mentioned our social media. Oftentimes it's nice to sort of connect with other people who have traveled with us, and it's possible for people to, we'll actually post a beautiful photograph, and all of a sudden we have a little community that starts around a photograph that we might have posted on Facebook or Instagram or what have you. So that's a great way to sort of learn a little bit more about some of the things we do, particularly with A&K Philanthropy, but the different destinations that we travel as well. And I think as far as a closing thought, I think that the world's a fascinating place, and
I love that.
With a company like ours, you can really have an inspiring experience in just about every place that we go, from Antarctica to the Arctic and everywhere in between. And I just encourage people to travel. It's more about, you're not going to put on your headstone that you could have acquired more stuff. But true. I think you could say, I wish I had gone more places. And I think that we all, no matter how much we've traveled, there's still a lot of fascinating places to see. And
what is the top fascinating place? I think I want to end it with maybe saying, and I know this is going to be so hard for you to answer, and I'm putting you on the spot. I should probably have asked you this in advance, but I'm going to ask you anyways. I want you to say to our listeners, what's one of the most fascinating places you've ever visited, and then what is a place that fascinates you currently that you can't wait to visit?
Normally if you ask for my favorite place, I narrowed it down to 3. But if you say the most fascinating place I've ever been, probably Antarctica, South Georgia, and the Falklands. That was all on one trip. It was probably South Georgia. The fact that I stepped on my 7th continent in Antarctica was cool. That's too. But amazing. South Georgia is one of the most amazing places that I've ever visited in my life, with the whole Ernest Shackleton history that's around and on that island. His grave is there.
Shawn is not talking about Georgia as in the state.
Sorry, no. Way south. South Georgia Island. It's en route. It's a little bit east, but it's basically straight east and a little bit south of Argentina. It is in the middle of nowhere. Literally. And it's on the way to Antarctica, the long way, but we saw more than 200,000 penguins in one shot, just as far as the eye can see, and it really is. It was a fascinating trip from start to finish. I've been to Antarctica twice. I'd go again in a heartbeat. Did you do that through
cruise? Did you do a cruise, or was it through plane?
A cruise.
It was a cruise.
The planes are a little bit problematic because the weather has to be perfect, and you could sit in Chile or Argentina for days waiting for the weather to be perfect, and that's cutting out part of your time for being in Antarctica, where the ships, we have a little bit more flexibility. So we charter a ship and take a few journeys every December and January, but it's definitely the most fascinating place on earth that I've ever been. And in terms of what's next, I'm planning to go to Japan. I've been before, but I was a kid. I was a military brat, and I lived in Japan sort of part-time for 3 years. But 4th, 5th, and 6th grade isn't exactly knowing what Japan is all about today. So I'm going on a electro expedition cruise that we're operating from Sapporo, the very northern part of Japan, all the way down to Osaka, with excursions every day that
when
are
will you do
curated by
this?
Abercrombie in May of next year.
Wow.
It's called Wonders of Japan. Would love to have a few cabins left if anybody wants to come along. It's in May of next year. And then the ship is going on. I'm not doing the second sailing, but our president is, and it's going through the Ryukyu Islands, which are south of Japan. Also a really fascinating trip, but a little bit more centered on wildlife and World War II history along the way. So that goes from Osaka to Hong Kong.
So they can, anybody watching can still book their passage with you in Japan
and you
in
get
May.
to travel with me.
Yes, that's amazing. I would love to do that trip with you, but I have young children and it's not the right time. That trip sounds absolutely amazing and super fascinating, as you said. So if anybody's interested in traveling to Japan, you can go with Shawn in May, which I think would be a wonderful experience. So Shawn, thank you so much on behalf of the entire Gifted Travel Network team. We are incredibly honored and just over the top thrilled at all the amazing inspiration that you gave out today for Travel Talk Live. Thank you to our Travel Talk Live viewers for supporting this new and what we think is pretty exciting web show, a new way to consume your travel inspiration and to get ideas to dream big about your next travel experience. So thanks so much for watching. And for those of you watching the recording, thank you for taking the time to watch. And if you want to subscribe to Travel Talk Live, you can actually visit giftedtravelnetwork.com. Go to our blog. You'll see our previous episodes have been uploaded. And there's actually a tab there, or not a tab, there's a space where you can actually opt in to be notified of Travel Talk Live, which is going to be happening every Tuesday at noon Eastern Standard Time. We're having so much fun with this show. We're going to keep it going. So thank you so much, Shawn, for being our guest today. We're very grateful. Thank you to Abercrombie & Kent.
My pleasure,
And
Vanessa.
thanks, everyone. Make it a great rest of your day. Bye.